What is up, YouTube? Dottz Gaming here with the third part of my DW Frost guide. So, the first part covered my talents, my glyphs, my stat priority and gearing, and the second part covered macros. So if you haven't watched those two videos yet, I would highly recommend watching them. And this third video will cover your basic damage rotation, as well as just like general ability uses, such as, you know, presences and plague leech and things of that nature. So to start off with your basic DPS rotation, you do not play DW Frost like you play 2H Frost. You know, DW Frost focuses a lot more on your Plague Strike and your Howling Blast to stack your Necrotic Plague and less around Obliterate. So speaking of Obliterate, figure let's touch on that topic now, because, you know, I'm sure that's why at least like half of you are here to wonder, you know, do I use Obliterate or not? I'm not going to give you a hard yes or a hard no. I'm going to go with it depends, because if you notice, I have my 4 set still. You know, RNG boxes have only given me 1 epic main piece. So I will still occasionally Obliterate. Mostly though, I will use it right before I'm about to burst to try to fish for a freezing fog proc to give my burst an extra 10% damage. But your main thing when you're dealing damage is you want to stack up that Necrotic Plague as much as possible. So you will be utilizing Plague Strike, Howling Blast, and then in PvP, you know, obviously you're going to be using Chains of Ice and Icy Touch occasionally to dispel things. Oh, Icy Touch to dispel things, Chains to keep that guy rooted and close to you. But, you know, generally you're just, you know, you're hitting those Plague Strikes, hitting the Howling Blasts. So, you know, you don't want to utilize that Obliterate too much, because if you do, it uses 2 runes, you're not going to be able to stack your Necrotic Plague fast enough, and that's just like a lot of damage that's getting wasted. So, you know, running, you know, Chains, go into town, fucking Howling Blasts, Plague Strikes, there we go, Frost Strike, get Rune and Corruption, keep stacking it, Look at that, 15 stacks, 18 seconds left, okay? So I got Killing Machine, Frost Strike, Obliterate Fish for a proc. I didn't get it. I'm not going to wait for it anyway, so I just lay in and burst. Just go in, go to town. So then, Dott's wearing off, Plague Leech, put it back up. So as you saw, you know, I didn't get it. You know, there's a bit of a trade-off when you try to fish for it, because, you know, Obliterate still does deal some good damage, but there is the chance in PvP that it could get parried, it could get dodged, because it is a physical attack. But if you have your 4 set, I definitely still do believe that when you're going to burst, it is worth it to try to fish for a freezing fog proc, because when you do get it, that extra 10% really, really helps. But if you don't have your 4 set, honestly, put it on a keybind you don't use that often, because you're very seldom going to use it. The only time I'd like really recommend using Obliterate when you don't have your 4 set is if your target is immune to spell damage, like a rogue Cloak of Shadows. You know, you don't want to just be sitting there hitting him for white damage, you know, your auto attacks. You want to throw in some Obliterates there to just put some damage on your opponent. But for if you do have your 4 set, like I still have mine, toss in 1, maybe 2 before you're about to burst. But that's really about it, because, you know, you don't want to try to just sit there and fish for a proc, because as you saw, you can get kind of screwed. So now, moving away from damage rotation, just talking about abilities in general. Plague Leech. Plague Leech, you know, you want to use definitely when your dot is about to come to an end. Boom, get some runes back up, as you saw me do. And another time is you want to use it if, like, you need healing, like 5 seconds ago. Like, if you need healing, like, now. So, you know, you Plague Leech, Death Runes, Death Siphon, Death Siphon. You know, you just toss in those Death Siphons. Another good, like, so, speaking of Death Siphon, if we want to talk about good healing strats, you know, generally we'll be running Chill Blades. So, using your chains to keep your target rooted, it just Death Siphoning is a really, really good way to heal up. Honestly, you can kite so well as DW Frost between your chains, your chill blains, and then just having that ranged heal. It honestly is really, really good. Another thing, Icy Touch. You want to use that ability a decent amount. Because what it provides for DW Frost, it provides a stack on your dot, it provides the chill blade debuff, and it dispels a buff off of your target, which is huge, is absolutely huge. So generally in arena, what I do when I walk in, and I've been doing this lately, and I believe it's been helping a lot. This is especially useful against paladins, holy paladins, which, you know, we see all over the place now. When you walk into that arena and you see your kill target, you want to just walk in Icy Touch, Icy Touch, Icy Touch. Dispel all of the guy's buffs off. Obviously, because, you know, you have the buffs off your target. But when you go to burst on your target and, like, that Warlock needs some help, a lot of times the pal is going to put a bop on him. Bop can be dispelled from Icy Touch. If you leave all of those buffs on your target, that hand of protection is going to be one of the last things to come off, and you're just going to be sitting there wasting runes on Icy Touch. Because yeah, you're taking buffs off at that point, but if you've taken the time in the beginning of the fight to remove them off, to take them off then, when it comes time to take off a buff that really, really matters, you will be able to put in less Icy Touches to get it, and therefore be dealing more damage because you won't have to put in as many Icy Touches. What else? Death Grip. You want to utilize Grip to grip casts. You don't want to just be saving it for when somebody is getting away from you. You know, you run Chill Blades, you have a root, you have a slow. You know, Death Grip has a lot of utility to it. You know, you can bring a healer into the fight to put some cleave damage on him. You can grip casts, you know, you can grip, like, you know, Cyclones, Polys, Fears, you know. Grip is an ability that you want to use a lot. And I generally will save it for either gripping a cast or bringing a healer into the fight to cleave, or if we're going against like a Resto Druid and we want to swap to the Resto Druid, we swap to the Resto Druid, I wait for his Displacer Beast, and then grip the Displacer Beast. What else? So Dark Sim. I had somebody on one of my videos comment that Dark Simming Polys is completely irrelevant when you run Necrotic Plague. And while yes, I understand the logic behind it, because, you know, Necrotic Plague's just going to pop the poly anyway, that's not necessarily true. That's saying that it's never useful, because a lot of healers have the ability to dispel my diseases with no penalties. No penalties at all. So if that healer, you know, if we're cleaving, that healer is going to keep my diseases off of him. So, or the targets might just be spread out, and my diseases might not have just made it onto all of the targets. So Dark Simming things like Poly, Cyclone, Fear, but, you know, just speaking on Poly, you want to just steal it as much as you can to try to get extra CC out, because, you know, there might be somebody on the team that doesn't have dot on them. Boom, toss the CC on them, and then, you know, dot them up once it wears off. But Dark Sim can be your most powerful ability if you gotta think a little bit though when you're using it. So, for example, you're going up on a mage. Let's say you're running Asphyxiate, or your partner is running stuns. Chances are when you stun that mage is gonna blink. So when you stun that mage, put your Dark Sim on. Boom, he's gonna blink. Now you can blink right after him. Warlocks. I have stolen a decent amount of Dark Souls from Warlocks, because generally, and it's kind of a game of chance, I've noticed there are two types of Warlocks. There are Warlocks that will put their dots up first and then Dark Soul and spread them around, because, you know, Pandemic will cause the dot durations to stack. I think that's still in the game. Or there will be Warlocks that just boom, they just pop their Dark Soul right off the bat and just throw out dots. So you're kind of playing a little bit of a game. So what I like to do is I like to run in, stack up as much runic power as I can real quick. And then once that like Warlock kind of gets a little bit of distance from us, I Dark Sim. And then a lot of times you can steal that Dark Soul. So definitely give that a try, because stealing Dark Soul, man, gives you a lot of damage. Gives you some sweet damage. That gives you a sweet damage buff. Soul Reaper. Don't forget the Soul Reaper when the target's below 35% health. But a good technique to start doing is Soul Reaper them at like 50%, you know? Because if we're bursting, okay, and we're doing good damage to the target, chances are that target's going to dip pretty low. So if you Soul Reaper like 50% health when they're at 50%, and you keep bursting, if they touch 35% health, they're going to get chunked by that Soul Reaper crit. If you get a Soul Reaper crit, but they're going to get chunked by that Soul Reaper. It's just pre-Soul Reapering is a really good technique to get in like sudden damage when they hit 35%. But definitely keep it up. It's not a DPS. I saw someone say it's a DPS loss to put it up. Put it up. It's Shadow Frost damage. As your mastery will get higher, that will only deal more damage. And if it crits, you will destroy somebody. They will die. I don't think I've talked about presences. I don't think I have. Okay, so you want to try to stay in Frost Presence as much as possible. Going to Blood will seriously give your damage by a lot. You know, if you absolutely need to get healed, you know, like I mentioned before, Chains, Death Siphon. Keep that person at bay while you just heal yourself up. But if you absolutely need to switch into Blood Presence, because there are times where you do, you know, if you're against an RMD and you're worried about their opener, or you just need that health and you need that damage reduction, you know, that's when you swap into Blood. But you want to try to stay in Frost Presence as long as you can. And going back to what I just said, if you need to be worrying about swapping between Frost and Blood Presence a lot, that's when you run the Shifting Presences glyph. But most of the time, you're going to want to try to stay in Frost and only swap to Blood when absolutely necessary. You know, Blood Presence for DW Frost is crippling. Honestly, I think that pretty much covers everything important. I'm looking at my abilities. I don't see anything else of great importance. So, well, that needs to be discussed anyway. So, I hope you guys enjoyed the guide. I hope it helped. I hope it cleared up a lot. I'm also going to be outputting guides for 2H Frost as well as Unholy. So, keep an eye out for those. Please, if you're not subscribed to the channel, it really helps me out and it shows me, you know, that the work I'm doing is good. Also, like the video, comment what you think. Constructive criticism is always welcome. Compliments are also always welcome, of course. But I hope this guide helps you guys out. I know a bunch of people have been waiting for me to put it out, so I decided to finally just sit down, make it, and upload it. So, if you haven't watched the first 2 parts, check out some of the other videos on my channel. Subscribe, please. As always, I'm Dottz Gaming. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.